All right, today we're cracking open the playbook for high-performing teams. We're going to cut through all the noise and give you a super practical guide to building a team that doesn't just work, it absolutely wins.
It's a question pretty much everyone is asked at some point, right? Why do some teams just soar while others totally sink? You get all these talented people in a room, and yet the results can be, well, a little all over the place. One team just clicks, they create magic. The other just kind of muddles through. So what is the secret sauce? Let's dive in and find out.
Okay, first things first. We got to get our definitions straight. Because we throw around the words group and team like they're the same thing, but honestly, in the world of how organizations actually work, they are worlds apart. And understanding this difference, it's the first real step to building something amazing. And boom, this slide just lays it out perfectly. A work group, that's basically a collection of individuals. They share info, sure, and their performance is really just the sum of what each person does. But a work team? Oh, that is a whole different beast. Their goal is collective performance. They create what we call positive synergy. That's the magic, where the whole is way, way greater than the sum of its parts. Accountability isn't just on you anymore, it's on us. And that, right there, is the ultimate game changer.
So, now that we know what a real team looks like, let's talk about the different flavors they come in. Because this is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. The type of team you build really depends on what you're trying to get done.
And here they are, the four most common types you're going to see out there in the wild. We've got problem-solving teams, self-managed teams, cross-functional, and of course, virtual teams. Each one's got its own unique structure, its own purpose. Let's break them down one by one. First up, problem-solving teams. A great example of this is the classic quality circle. You bring together, say, 5 to 12 people from the same department, and their whole job is to brainstorm ways to make things better. Now, their power is in their ideas, but here's the key. They're advisors. They suggest solutions, but they don't usually have the authority to just go and implement them on their own.
All right, next, we level up to self-managed teams, and this is a huge step up in autonomy. We're talking about groups of maybe 10 to 15 people who don't just do the work, they actually take on the responsibilities of their old supervisors. Things like planning, scheduling work, making key operating decisions, it's all about empowerment and real ownership.
Now, for those really big, complex projects, you're going to need cross-functional teams. This is where you pull people from the same hierarchical level, but from totally different departments. Marketing, finance, engineering, all in one room. They are absolutely essential for getting that full 360-degree view on a problem. The catch? Well, getting all those diverse perspectives to speak the same language and work together smoothly. Yeah, that can take some real time and effort.
And finally, we have a type of team that I think we're all very familiar with these days, virtual teams. They use technology to bring together people who aren't in the same physical space. The big challenge here, as you probably know, is bridging that distance to build real trust and just make sure everyone's pulling in the same direction.
All right, so we've defined what a team is, we've looked at the different types. Now, it's time for the main event, the blueprint. What are the universal ingredients that make any team, no matter the type, effective? Well, the research gives us a surprisingly clear model.
And this right here, this is the secret formula. Team effectiveness isn't some random accident. It really boils down to 3 key pillars. You've got context. That's the support system around the team. Then you've got composition, getting the right people on the bus. And finally, process. That's how the team actually works together day in and day out. Think of it like a 3-legged stool. If any one of these is weak, the whole thing just falls apart. But if you get them all right, you're building a foundation for incredible success.
So let's start with context. Look, a team can't thrive in a vacuum. It just can't. They need the right resources, the tools, the information, the staff support. They need strong leadership and a structure that actually lets them do their job. And maybe most importantly, they need a climate of trust and a reward system that recognizes what the team accomplishes, not just what the individual superstars do.
Next up, composition. This is all about who is on the team. I mean, of course you need people with the right skills, both technical and people skills. But personality, it's huge. You want conscientious people who actually follow through, and open-minded people who are willing to listen to new ideas. You also have to be smart about allocating roles and keeping the team size just right. The sweet spot is usually somewhere between 5 and 9 members. Any more than that, and things can get, messy.
And speaking of allocating roles, check this out. This is what we mean. Great teams are balanced. They have creators to come up with the new ideas,
promoters to champion those ideas, controllers to check the details and make sure things are on track, and maintainers to fight off the external challenges. I mean, imagine a team full of only creators. You'd have a million amazing ideas and zero follow-through. It's all about having the right mix.
And finally, we get to process. This is all about the team's internal chemistry, its dynamics. Effective teams, they have a clear, common purpose and really specific, measurable goals. They have high team efficacy, which is just a fancy way of saying they have a shared belief that they can actually succeed. And this is a big one. They handle conflict in a healthy way, and they avoid social loafing. Where some individuals just kind of coast on the group's effort. Okay, this simple equation might be one of the most important things to remember from this whole explainer. A team's actual effectiveness isn't just about the raw talent you start with. It's their potential, plus the gains you get from good processes, like great communication, minus the losses from bad processes, like infighting. Your process is the multiplier. It can either launch your potential into the stratosphere or drag it right down into the mud.
So, we've got the theory down. We know the model. But how do you actually create people who can work well in these kinds of effective teams? Let's get super practical with a really straightforward action plan.
Here it is, a simple 3-step process. First, when you're hiring or just picking people for a team, don't just look at their technical skills. Make sure they have the people skills to actually collaborate. Second, train them. I'm talking workshops in communication, negotiation, conflict resolution. These things are absolutely invaluable. And third, and this is crucial, tweak your reward system. If you only reward the individual stars, you will never, ever get a true team.
So we spent all this time talking about how to build amazing teams. But the final and, maybe the most important piece of wisdom is knowing when a team isn't the answer at all.
So before you even think about assembling a team, ask yourself this first question, the complexity test. Can this work actually be done better by more than one person? Does it really need different skills or perspectives to succeed? Because if one expert can handle it more efficiently, just let them. A team isn't always the right tool for the job.
Second, there's the purpose test. Does the work create a genuine common goal? Is there a collective win that's more than just adding up a bunch of individual tasks? If everyone is just working on their own little separate piece of the puzzle, you might just need a work group to coordinate things, not a true, deeply integrated team.
And finally, this is the ultimate litmus test, interdependence. Is each member's success tied to the others? Do they absolutely need to rely on each other to get the job done? If the answer to that is no, then a team structure is probably just going to create a bunch of unnecessary meetings and coordination headaches.
And that brings us to the crucial final insight. The playbook for high-performing teams has to include a chapter on when to keep the playbook on the shelf. You can't just assume teams are always the solution. The true mark of a great leader isn't just being able to build incredible teams. It's having the wisdom to know when a talented individual working alone is actually the better path to success. And sometimes, that's the most important play you can possibly make.